The Festool miter saws in the shop are normally stowed in the down and back position. To use the saw, pull on the headlock knob on the right side of the saw to raise the cutter head into position. That's all you need for cross-cutting narrow boards like the one shown here. The saw can also cut boards up to 12 inches wide. For that, you'll need to release the slide lock knob at the back of the rail on the right side of the saw. To cut long boards safely on the chop saw, we need to pay attention to whether the board itself has a bow, bend, or twist in it. If you look down the length of the board, it's easy to see if it's bent or twisted. The most important thing to remember is that the wood should not move at all during the cutting process. If there's a space underneath it, as you cut, the wood could sag down and pinch the sides of the blade. The same is true if there's a space behind the wood. So we need to find a way to position it where there's no space behind or underneath. There may be some space behind the ends of your board and the fence, but that's unimportant. What matters is directly beneath the blade. To operate the chop saw safely, it's important not to stand directly in front of the blade. Since I'm right-handed, I generally stand to the left side, operating the saw with my right hand. If I were to cross my arms, it would be dangerous because my elbow would be much too close to the spinning blade. If you are left-handed, very likely you'll be more comfortable standing to the right and operating the saw with your left hand. To position your material accurately on the miter saw, you'll want to lower the blade to see where the teeth make contact with the surface of the wood. To do this safely, pull the power switch with your finger, but do not press the trigger lock with your thumb. This will allow you to lower the blade and raise the blade guard out of the way without turning the saw on. Once you've found the right position, you can clamp it in place if it's a short piece. When you're ready to make your cut, you need to press the power switch and depress the trigger lock at the same time. Lowering it slowly through the wood will make a better cut. When you want to make a mitered cut on your material, you'll need to change the angle of the saw table. To do this, raise the miter lock clamp and press down on the stop release. Stop release allows clicking into position in some commonly used preset angles. Afterwards, press the miter lock down and be sure to compare and align your cut before clamping your material in place. Be sure to double check that your material is secure before cutting. When you cut wood quickly on the chop saw, it often results in some torn and splintered edges behind the cut. There are a couple things we can do about this. One is to use a backing material like this masonite here. Put that behind the wood you're cutting and it'll help support the wood and reduce the splintering. Let me get my hand outside the red zone. And the other thing we can do is cut very slowly. This time I'm going to make a much slower cut with the backing material, and I think we'll see a very clean result by comparison. Yeah, there it is. When you want to use the chop saw to make many pieces of the same length, you might think to mark each cut with a pencil mark. But this can be time-consuming and problematic because with each cut, the blade removes an 1/8 inch of material which can compound over the length of your stock. Instead, Try making a single mark for your first cut, and then positioning your material carefully under the teeth of the blade, with the blade to the outside of your pencil mark. Having positioned your stock carefully, put a wooden block at the end and clamp it to the table fence. This will make a repeatable cut very easy. I've got enough room in this case to hold the material with my hand outside of the red danger zone, so there's not any need to use a clamp, and this will be a very quick process. I want to make sure that there's no gap behind or below the material that I'm cutting. Having made a first cut and double checking the length, I can continue by doing the same thing again and again. Slide the stock up to the stop block and cut. This makes it easy to make many cuts of exactly the same length.